So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Q&A session on strategies for recruiting and retaining great volunteers. My name is Tamika. I'm Small, and I am the training consultant here at Tourism Saskatchewan, and I'll be guiding the discussion as we explore effective ways to really attract, retain volunteers in your organization as it relates to tourism and hospitality. But before we get into the discussion today, um, I just want to acknowledge that we're joining from different parts of the province today, which is made up of Treaty 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10, and that we're on the gathering land of the Indigenous peoples and the homeland of the Métis. And that, as we move forward towards reconciliation, it is a good way for us to really take time out to understand each other as Saskatchewan is a very diverse, I would say, province. Now, as I mentioned today, our topic is strategies for recruiting and retaining great volunteers. Volunteers do play a very crucial role in the success of many organizations or businesses when it comes on to tourism. But finding and keeping dedicated individuals can really be a challenge. So today, we are joined by Lieutenant Governor Bernadette McIntyre, a seasoned expert in volunteering, and she is here to share insights and practical strategies on this topic. Her Honour Bernadette McIntyre was installed as Saskatchewan's 24th Lieutenant Governor on January the 31st, 2025. Your Honour grew up in Butane, Saskatchewan, and saw the whole community volunteering their time and expertise to ensure they were able to have experiences they wanted. Her Honour has carried on the spirit of volunteerism, dedicating decades to dozens of boards and councils, as well as planning national curling championships, Grey Cup festivals, and many more. Among her many accolades, her Honour was inducted into the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame in 2023 in recognition of her inspiring leadership. I don't want to say when I grow up, I want to be more like you, Your Honour Bernadette. So for today, let us just set the expectations for the conversations. So during our conversation today, we're going to be covering some key topics such as how is it that you're able to attract the right volunteers, screening and selecting individuals who align with your business mission. And then we're going to be also looking or talking about training and empowering volunteers for success. The conversation will also be centered around keeping volunteers engaged and what you can do to actually motivate them over the long term so you will have a loyal list of volunteers. And then we're also going to be chatting about navigating challenges, such as giving feedback and addressing those performance issues. And lastly, the conversation will end by how is it that you're able to build strong communication and a sense of community, which is all what Saskatchewan is all about. And so I will encourage you, as I said before, to take some notes and do prepare to ask some questions. There will be opportunity for Q&A at the end. So I want you to feel free to drop your questions in the chat or the Q&A sections throughout this discussion. So let's dive in. Welcome, Your Honour, Bernadette McIntyre. It's great to have you. And I also do want to take the opportunity to say congratulations on being installed as Saskatchewan's 24th Lieutenant Governor. And we did have just a brief conversation about that. And I'm really interested in all the things that you have been doing and will be doing throughout the course of your tenure as Lieutenant Governor. But before we get into the conversation, Your Honor, I have done some research on you as well, and I have found out that you have been a long-time volunteer and that you have really been recognized for your extensive contribution to your community. So I think the first question that we ought to start with is what got you really into volunteering?
Well, as you said, thank you so much. As you said, I grew up in rural Saskatchewan. So I grew up in and around Bethune, Saskatchewan. And as I believe is true today, and even in our bigger centers, Regina and Saskatoon, to make our community run, but especially in rural Saskatchewan, everybody had to volunteer. So my dad was a huge community volunteer, being a farmer. My mom was a teacher, so she was involved with the community. So we grew up that it was part of our DNA that we volunteered. So from the time we can remember, we were also helping out at the curling rink or the skating rink or the ball diamonds or at the church. And so to me, there was no other way of life. So then when I came to the University of Regina's motto is as one who serves. So the university encouraged also that people give back. And so I grew up with it and continue to do that because I believe strongly that if you want your community that you're part of, whether it's the greater community or a community of volunteers or a community within your church or within your sport, if you want it to be great, you need to contribute because it takes volunteers, it takes lots of skills. And so if you want things to improve, you need to step up and be part of that. And a lot of that is through volunteering.
Yes, and that's a great story. I like the fact that you spoke about in small communities, volunteering is like the core of the community. And I did mention in our conversation prior to us starting, Your Honor, that Saskatoon, Saskatchewan has been listed as, is affectionately referred to as the volunteering capital of Canada. So I think if you want to get things done and make that impact to your community, then it's done through volunteering. And I also like the fact that the motto that you picked up was as one who serves, giving back is very important. I think that is a good segue to the next question that I have. That volunteer does have, I would say, a lasting impact on the recipients and the persons that are volunteering. And we do have in tourism and hospitality a great deal of this when it comes on to events really depend on volunteers. So as you have volunteered for extensive period of your life, I want us to reflect on the impact of volunteering. Now, can you describe one volunteering experience that has really made a lasting impression on you? And why does this stand out in your memory?
Yes, I can. So a lot of my volunteering focused around curling because that was a sport I was interested in, grew up with, loved the sport. Although I wasn't a great, and I still curl, I wasn't your elite athlete, but I could help organize. So I had the opportunity to organize a lot of bonspiels, Southern championships, provincial championships. But the experience I want to mention is the first national championship that I chaired was the 1998 Scott Turner Hart, the Canadian Women's Curling Championship. And we welcomed back the Sandra Schmerler team with a gold medal at that event. So that was very, very emotional. However, the lasting experience that I had and that I take with me now forward with everything I do was when everything was done, the final game had been played and the ceremonies were over. We're walking around talking to people and cleaning up and several people said to me, whether they were fans, players, or volunteers, they said to me, thank you for the memories. And it still is very emotional for me because I had never thought before that what we were doing was making memories, and you're making everybody's memories are different of that event, but you're setting everything up to make wonderful memories, whether it's for the participants, the fans, the volunteers, the sponsors, and to get that kind of response made me think a little differently then about how I approached events and managing volunteers and events and other kind of volunteer opportunities, because you have to remember that this is something that will stay in people's memories. And you want that to be a good memory. So it was very impactful to me. And we'd had a very, very successful event on all sides, all factors. It was financially successful. It was great on the ice. Everybody was pretty much happy. And that this was what was in the hearts of the people who had been involved. So I think about that now whenever I work on something or work with volunteers.
I like that. That's a very heartwarming story that you just shared, Your Honor. And one of the things that I did extract is that making memories part. That is very rewarding, I would say, for volunteers. And just putting those smiles on, all the different stakeholders. It doesn't really matter where they're coming from, but the different stakeholders, that's very important. And that's very interesting that you mentioned that, because whenever you're getting volunteers or, recruiting or attracting volunteers, we want persons to come with that same mentality. I want to create memories. And I think it's very important that we discuss how we're able to attract volunteers, just as committed as yourself in making a difference and creating those memories. But we know that finding those dedicated volunteers can be very difficult. So what strategies have you found to be most successful in attracting volunteers who are really truly committed like yourselves, so that they are able to maintain the business or that organization mission as they come on board?
Well, first I'll start with just taking off from memories. Thinking that you are helping create memories helps frame some of your decisions too on how you manage an event or whatever you're recruiting volunteers to do. So you have to remember that it is part of what you have to think about. So with recruiting volunteers, you need to have very clear objectives so that the volunteers know what is the objective of what they're signing up for. They need to know what is the team goal. You need to ensure that you create an environment that the volunteers feel part of the team. So I've come across people who feel, oh, the volunteers are just people that will replace paid labor and we can treat them that way. Volunteers want to be part of the team. So you need to ensure that they can make valuable contributions. If the only thing you want volunteers for is to pick up the garbage after an event, it's not very attractive to volunteers. If it's packaged with a number of other things, and one of the things on the list is cleaning up after the event, then they've gotten to be able to meet new and exciting people. They've got being able to welcome people and maybe, doing a little cleanup at the end is part of it. But it can't just be, oh, gee, we'll give the worst job to the volunteer. Also, you have to communicate to them clearly and frequently. So the volunteer needs to feel they are part of your team. So you should always tell your volunteer what's going on first. Even if it's a major media release, if it's sent to the volunteers 5 minutes before, even if they don't read it till after, they will notice that and they'll go, oh yes, I'm an insider and I received that information before the general public. Even if they maybe heard it on the radio before they got home to read it, they know that, okay, this was announced at 2 o'clock, but at 10 to 2, there was an email sent to me because I'm a volunteer. And then probably most important of all, you need to ensure that volunteers have fun. They can work hard, but there has to be an element of fun. So that's very, very important. And the other thing I'll mention that has evolved differently with younger volunteers, you need to ask volunteers what they want to gain out of the volunteering experience. So young people in my perception, look at volunteering a little differently. They want to gain skills. They want to get experiences that they can't obtain maybe where they are in their career right now. They want to meet people. So you need to sort of have an idea what your volunteer wants to get out of the experience too. So that really helps you to recruit and keep a volunteer a little bit longer. So there's a matching of needs.
I like that. I like that, Your Honor. Quite a number of things that you have mentioned. Yes, someone did ask if they're hearing correctly whether or not Saskatoon is the volunteer capital of the country. Yes, it is. Canada, Saskatoon, I have read, is affectionately referred to as the volunteer capital of the of Canada. So I think this is something that we can pat ourselves on the back on to say
Well,
that
and I
yes.
would go broader than that. I think it's all of
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan because,
Yes.
a lot of our rural communities aren't included in some of those statistics.
Hmm.
And so in my experience, it's all of Saskatchewan. We have wonderful, wonderful volunteers province-wide.
Yes. So happy that you mentioned that. So it's Saskatchewan and not just confined to Saskatoon. One of the things that you did mention, Your Honor, is that we know that when persons volunteer, it's all about altruism, being able to help others and to make a really conscious contribution to the community. But I like the part that you spoke about in terms of finding out in terms of what is it that they want to accomplish. So you help them to define what is it that they want to accomplish and then providing them with the support so that they can champion their own cause, that what they want to achieve. And also that clear line of communication is very important and seeing them as inclusive to the team and not exclusive. And I think once we do that and really with that communication part, clearly define the task, clearly define your mission. And I think once that is done, that they will be on board. But we also want to run over the fact that, as I mentioned before, when it comes on to volunteering, many of the events in Saskatchewan really depends on volunteer. And we have huge organizations and we have some very small ones that really do put on quite a number of events. And finding those dedicated volunteers, as you mentioned, it started really from, the right recruitment approach. And so I want to understand because it is a struggle really to find and attract good volunteers, especially when you have limited resources. So what advice would you provide to these organizations? How can they go about recruiting the right volunteers, even when they have limited resources?
Well, I think you need to define again what skills you are looking for. And now you need to, people use social media to recruit volunteers, but I have seen that even most recently, only using social media limits you. I know we all think everybody's on social media. So you will garner some of the younger people there, but you also have a great source of people who are a little bit older or newly retired. And so you need to make sure you also look for volunteers through traditional media. It doesn't have to be paid advertising. Word of mouth is wonderful. And to also contact other organizations because lots of volunteers who are retired or semi-retired, go from one organization to the other because they're happy to be involved. And then I think, excuse me, I think to keep your volunteers or to keep them interested, they need to be part of the process. You need to listen to your volunteers. So if you already have volunteers, you ask them where to get other volunteers. You ask them to be part of how you improve your event, if it's an annual event or ongoing. And again, you have to continually communicate with them. So asking for volunteers isn't a one-time thing once a year. It's a continual process of being able to bring them within the fold.
Nicely said, nicely said. And I like those what you said about having those or using those conventional and unconventional methods as well for recruitment. Because a lot of persons, they will only think of social media, the TikToks, all those things. But if we're going to be, really look into those other demographics of volunteers, I think those conventional methods are still usable, are still really valuable in terms of using those individuals that we can bring on board. So the next question that I want to look at is that you've spoken about how is it that we can really recruit these individuals. And so once organizations or businesses have really attract volunteers, I think the next challenge is going to be selecting the right volunteers for the role that you have based on your mission, your core values, and the task at hand as well. So not every volunteer, because we know that some persons really do want to volunteer, and not every volunteer will be a good fit for the role that you have or even for your organization. So what key, I would say, qualities should event organizers should really look for when they are screening or really selecting volunteers?
Well, first of all, they need to have, if not a passion, an interest in what you're doing. So if you sense or can figure out that they're signing up for maybe the free t-shirt, that's maybe not going to be your best volunteer. However, you do have to be careful because we do have lots of new Canadians that may not know what this event is about, and they are wonderful volunteers. So it's a very careful process there, but it is super helpful if they have an interest or passion in whatever area you're doing that in. Then you should have defined, at least in point form, the volunteer positions you have and some of the key skill sets that they need. So you need to match them up. If you need courtesy drivers, but somebody doesn't have a driver's license, that's really not a good match. So, I mean, I know that's an extreme example, but that can happen. And then you also want to know about their availability, and if you can get a sense of their reliability, because like employees, it's important that volunteers show up when they say they're going to show up.
Yes.
And then the other thing, although you can train them somewhat on this, it's their attitude and like positive attitude and customer service skills. Because if you're doing almost any event, your volunteers tend to be mostly front facing. So they need to be people who can be calm when things may not be calm and are comfortable with people. There are backroom volunteer roles, absolutely. So again, you need to know what skills do you need so that if 70 or 80% of the people you're recruiting need to be front facing, then you need calm people who like people, who are good with customer service. and then 70% of your back room, more analytical, aren't as comfortable with people, then you can recruit your volunteers to those roles. So there's a fair bit of tailoring you need to do once you've got your major intake of volunteers.
I see that recruiting volunteer is no simple matter, because it's similar to like a job. It's, as you mentioned before, they're not being paid for the job, but it is actually a job. So it's very important that we focus, I am thinking, the matching skills, their interest, the motivation. And I like the part about the attitude as well, and that customer service skills, because it goes back to what you said prior to this, the first question. It's making memories and creating memories. And so those things are very crucial when it comes on to, acquiring those persons that have the qualities that you want for the role. And one of the things that you mentioned is the immigrants, because Saskatchewan in general, is very diverse, and many immigrants, they do want to volunteer. And sometimes they may not know in essence, in its entirety, what it's all about. So that's where the training comes in, and that's where that communication piece comes in about what is it that you're looking for and what the event or the task is all about. So I think we're going in some form of sequence, and I like where the conversation is going, that now that we have really recruited and we have a sense of who we want for the role, and we have selected those individuals, now we want to prepare them for success. And so, volunteering training, you mentioned that some training, may be good for this, is very essential, I think, for success, and training in general is very important for success. But when it comes on to tourism events, what are some key elements that should be included if you want a strong volunteering training program? What are some things that the event planners need to include in this?
Well, it's a very complex question, but in our time, I'll try to go through that. So you need every volunteer to understand that event's goals. What is the end game? So I know with curling events, we'd say we wanted to, number one goal, we want to host a fabulous event for the participants, the fans, and the volunteers. We want to profile Regina, Saskatoon, Ogama, and the province of Saskatchewan positively to everybody. And we want to have fun. So there's three main, so they all know we want to put on the best event ever. And we want to profile our community very positively, and we want everyone to enjoy. So you have to be very make sure they all know that that's what we're all trying to do. Then you need them to understand their role. So what they have signed up for, this is your role, and this is why it's valuable, and this is why it contributes to those three objectives. You need to keep this much less complex than you would if you're doing it in a corporate setting. They need to know who to go to for help. So who do they go to answer their questions? And you need to give them a true picture of what to expect. So, what I always tell them when we're having a major event, whether it's a Grey Cup or a curling event or a golf event that spans many days, it is always what I call organized chaos for the first couple of days while everyone settles in. And it happens, even if you do these events annually, you have different volunteers, different participants. So they have to know that they are going to face organized chaos the first couple of days till everybody settles in. And a lot of people don't tell them that. They just tell them, no, everything will be good. We've got a good plan, yada, 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 which you have all of that, but it's going to feel like chaos the first couple of days, or depending on length of your event, it might be the first half day. Then you have to give them some skills on how to deal with the public so that they know what to do, how to stay calm, how to, make sure they don't engage when somebody's very upset, and who to get that assistance from to get answers for that person, because it'll happen. And then the other element is just what I'll call technical skills that they need. So, if you are the dispatcher for the courtesy shuttle, somebody needs to teach you how to use the radios.
Okay.
If you are the umpire for volleyball, usually be trained in some way, but how are we doing it this time? So there'll be technical skills. Even if you're a greeter, what time do the doors open? What time do they close? Where are the locations that you're guiding people to? So they do need those technical skills, but most of all, they need to have a very good picture of how the event will work, how it all works towards the objectives, and how valuable their role is in that. And then it helps. And I mean, it still will be organized chaos for the first 10 to 15% of the time span of this event, but they'll understand that that is normal and natural, and we all have to do our best to get through it till when we settle in and we all feel comfortable.
Yeah. I like what you just said. I think I could summate what you just said in terms of setting clear expectations and really defining the roles that each person has to, the part or the task that they will have to undertake. But I also like everything that you've gone through. I see all of these. I see where it is empowering the volunteers. And once they feel empowered with a task at hand, I think that is where the success comes in, because it's also about, as you mentioned before, what is it that you want to do? This is what we want to do. This is our goal. This is our mission. But the end game is success. What do we want to achieve at the end? And I believe if we take everything into consideration, everything will work out well. One of the things that is always what is going through my mind is that, or that I said, I think you mentioned organized chaos. How do you remain calm in organized chaos when everything seems as if, how do you get the event planner or even the volunteers to remain calm at that point when they think that, oh my God, what have I signed up for? I'm not doing everything correct. From your experience, how do we get them to be calm in that moment?
Well, it comes from, they know that they are aware that this will happen, that they will feel that way, that they have someone they can call when they can't answer the question, even if they've done all the training, and that you've really never left a volunteer totally alone. There should be
Yes.
somebody else there sharing in the chaos, so that usually between the two of them, they can figure it out. But it's, what is their lifeline? How, and as you have mentioned, they're empowered to make some decisions. If
Yes.
if it's 30 below and the doors aren't supposed to open for 10 minutes and people are freezing out there, if things look ready, you empower them to open the doors. Like, they may have to make a quick call and tell somebody what the situation is. But yes, that makes sense. They're empowered to recommend and maybe even make the decision depending on the circumstance.
All right. Thank you so much, Your Honor. Now that we have we have gotten the qualities that we want, we have trained them. So one of the another element of success for volunteering is that they will stay on board as long as they feel valued and connected. So what guidance can you provide to businesses in tourism, hospitality? How can they keep these volunteers engaged so that after this event, they're already signing up for next year's event or for the next event that your business will be, organization will be hosting?
Well, I can't stress enough how you need to make sure they feel part of the team, that they are on the inside. So anything that is happening with your event, that the public especially are going to hear about eventually, make sure your volunteers hear first. And in fact, I think you go deeper than that. If you're thinking of making changes, ask for input from your volunteers, your recurring volunteers. They're your front line for the most part, and they're hearing. And you decide, oh, I'm going to change the location of the stage for this festival. Maybe run it past your volunteers. They may say, oh yeah, great idea. Everybody doesn't like that location because the sun's in your eyes at a certain time. Or they go, well, what are you thinking? People love that location. It's not the location of the stage, it's the location of the beer gardens that's wrong. So, and then, other things, appreciation. And it doesn't have to be expensive, because I know there's lots of small things. It's that thank you note, it's that thank you call, it's discounts on something, it's feeding them. And it doesn't have to be the big buffet. It's
Yeah,
feeding,
a sandwich.
there's a sandwich, there's snacks, there's cookies, there's chocolates, there's something gluten-free. They get something from the event, in that, and depending on your event, it could be, it could be a parka if you're working at Grey Cup. It could be a special pin because you're at a smaller event, or it's a t-shirt. So you need to sort of, make them part of the team, feed them every so often, clothe them in some way. And it may be a hat or a button, or it doesn't have to be a full wardrobe. And appreciation, like just saying thanks to the volunteers. And one thing I'll talk about in here, for ongoing annual events, and there's a lot of documentation on this, and one group that does a very good job of this is the Rider Squad with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. They need people back every season.
Yeah.
So they track how much volunteers volunteer, and they get rewards based on how much they volunteer. And they get to do some cool things. Again, the rewards can be a gift card to the the store, the rider store. However, it can be, okay, you get to be right down on the sidelines for one day because you're such a valued volunteer and you've hit this tier of volunteering. So in a lot of ways, it's more challenging to keep and retain volunteers doing the same event year after year, because they may get bored, they may say, oh, I want to try something different. When you have an event that happens every 5 or 7 years, it can be, there's still challenges, but it can be a little easier to recruit volunteers, because they say, oh, I'm going to volunteer that week and have a good time and learn some stuff and meet some people, and then I'm free to do other things.
Yeah.
So I really encourage people that have annual events that they want volunteers for, to make sure there's some progressive, so that your long-term volunteers are getting some benefits that the person who just started isn't get, that you work your way through. So there's value, and they're feeling more valued the longer they volunteer. So, and again, you're matching, as always, matching up their personal goals and objectives with yours. And that's always important. So if with a lot, not all, but with a lot of our retired or semi-retired people, they just want to stay active, involved, and learn new things. And so they're happy to be involved in most everything, not everything. And our younger volunteers want to be matched up a little bit more with, if they're carving out this piece of time, they want to be very valued, and they want to make sure it's something they're very interested in or want to develop something. And then most of all, you got to make it fun. So whether it's a rally before the event or a wind up after, that people have a bit of fun. And again, they don't have to be elaborate or expensive, but
Yeah.
get people together, and people are more into experiences. So if they get to go and get a tour of backstage, and then they get a beer and a bag of chips, a lot of times they just think, oh, that's so cool. It's something that
Yeah.
somebody else, the normal person that didn't volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
didn't get to do.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing, your Honor. I think that valued part, if you think of them as being valued member of your staff, see them as staff, as that's what I'm picking up on. If you see them as staff, you treat them as staff, then they will stick around for the long haul. And I like the fact that you mentioned quite a number of things. I mean, asking for their feedback, right? What can, because they're your hands and your feet on the ground, having regular check-ins, giving them a sense of purpose and that appreciation part. But I love the fact that you made the distinction between the older, I don't like to use the word older, that mature demographics, I would say, of volunteers, and then the younger ones as well. What are they looking for? That matching up in terms of their skills and providing that opportunity for growth and even for leadership roles as well. Because as you mentioned before, young people, they're seeing things differently, and they want to feel at the end of it all, people do want to feel valued at the end. So I think we want to take the conversation a bit further. So let's, beyond that individual motivation, what can you offer in terms of how can organization build that sense of community and belonging for their volunteers, that, as we mentioned before, they will be coming back and they feel as if they're part of the staff? How can they do that?
Well, I mean, it may sound repetitive, but you have to continually communicate with them. So if you have an annual
Mm-hmm.
event, you need to keep them in the loop, and probably provide opportunities for the volunteers to get together. Even if you're a small group, maybe there's, an after work quick get together, so that they stay connected. Because one of the great values of volunteering is all the wonderful people you meet. And a lot of the longer term relationships with that are your fellow volunteers. So you
Mm-hmm.
gain new friends and relationships through that. You just need to make it fun, right? I can't say that enough. So I'm a little, you're right that you need to think of them as employees, but I think of them more as family.
Family.
And I know there's a lot of absolutely a lot of the people, policies and human resource policies are similar with volunteers and, employees, but you have to really embrace your volunteers. They're priceless. They are giving their time to you and your cause. And so you really need to truly like your volunteers and like to deal with them. And they're not all wonderful. It is in that way, it's like any organization. You have your stars, you have your middle of the road people, and you do have some problem volunteers. You do have to
Mm-hmm.
be prepared to release a volunteer from time to time. But appreciation, inclusion, and I like to, it's not my quote, but it's one I've heard and I like to use. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with others. It takes a team to accomplish the dream.
Yes.
So you really, really need to make people feel part of your team. So volunteers I wish I were a better athlete, but when you talk to athletes of any kind, the ultimate is winning with your
Mm-hmm.
team, with your teammates. So you need to create that environment. The volunteers can feel like they won. We hosted that event. We pulled off that film festival again. That
Yes.
they did it together and
Mm-hmm.
won as a team, even if it
Yes.
wasn't a gold medal or a Stanley Cup, but people felt, oh, you know, we pulled off the farm show again, and we were
Yeah.
part of that team.
Yes, yes, yes. I like that. And I always say teamwork makes the dream work. So
That's right.
I love that saying. I'm going to segue a bit from the questions and just taking a couple of questions that persons have posted in the chat because time is against us. And a couple of things is that you spoke about the team working together as a team, and you're enthusiastic and you've just pulled off something great. But how do you keep the energy up when you're a leader and you're organizing, maybe you're organizing like the curling games, and you're a leader and you're trying to do all of these things. You're recruiting people, you're trying to show appreciation, you're creating purpose, you have to be communicating. How do you keep the energy up as a leader? So we need to talk to that leadership as well. And um, another question is that you might be good in one area, but lack the skills for another. How do you do it all?
Well, no one person can do it all, and we all know that. So
Hmm.
when doing an event, you need to recruit your team, your depending on the size of your small, medium, or large leadership team. And what we've gone to with a lot of models now is we have co-chairs. So which is great. So if you have a co-chair, then with whatever area is your area, you are in sync, and there's always one of you that can be, or almost always one of you that can be up and enthusiastic and able to address that. So again, this is a little bit like any kind of business. You need to surround yourself with a small core of people who can do that. So but I know that when I'm speaking to volunteers at whatever event, and you have to be on and up and positive. As exhausting as that can be, there needs to be a smile on your face all the time. You have to be calm, and it takes time and energy, and we get better at it as we do it. But as a leader, you need to and you can be concerned about things and say, oh, gee, this is a bit of a challenge, but you do need, I don't know how to say how each person stays positive and enthusiastic, but you need to draw on your key team. And I've been
Yes.
very fortunate in most events. I have had very good, you know, co's or second in commands that
Hmm.
have been there when I've needed them, and to pump me up, and vice versa. So everybody needs a person
Yeah.
when you're doing something like this. So find your person, and so that you guys can support each other, and always one of you can be that enthusiastic, up, positive, but calm person
Hmm.
to help lead the volunteers and make them feel like the organized chaos is somewhat organized.
Yes, and I think it's very good because if you try to do everything, you're going to get burned out. So, I mean, one of the things that I would, volunteer or event planners need to keep in mind is always leverage the skills and the expertise that you have on your team.
Absolutely.
You leverage all of those, and I think once you do that, and even from your volunteering core as well. I mean, if you realize that from, your the group of volunteers that you have, someone is good at, I would say, in terms of rallying the team, getting that energy boost up, use that individual. I think that would be great. Another question that I do have for you, Your Honor, is that, people are looking for ways to volunteer. And you mentioned that demographics in terms of that retired, that semi-retired group. So can you provide some examples of organizations for these individuals that they can look to if they want to volunteer, that's retired or semi-retired set of volunteers?
Well, I think you don't have to look too far. But I think the guide to a volunteer is look at areas that you're interested in. So if you're very interested in helping with your church, then you can seek that out. There's many facets. If you're interested in sport, then seek out, like Saskatchewan has sport in all its communities. So seek out and say, oh, gee, I'm a big hockey fan or soccer fan or whatever. They'll need your help in some way. And, or if you like events, there's events happening across Saskatchewan in all kinds of communities, whether it's rodeos, the sports day, you know, the hockey tournament, the curling bonspiel, the church social. Reach out to those organizations. Some organizations are a little bit shy about asking people just because they think, oh, you know, they won't want to do this job. They won't want to take a turn flipping hamburgers at the rink. Well, somebody may, oh, gee, that'd be great to do once a week. But think about, like, if you really don't like curling, don't volunteer for the curling event, right? Because it may not be your thing.
Find your niche.
Yeah, that's right. So find out, you know, if you love quilting, it may be that there's areas that quilt. If you love kids, there's so many, you know, after school programs and, you know, inner city programs that would love to have somebody, you know, a volunteer helping. So figure out a little bit what you want. And it may not be something you've done before. You may say, gee, you know, I've always been interested in this, but I've never had a chance. I've never had time because I've been working full time, or, you know, my kids have kept me busy, but I always was interested in weaving. And you'll find that there's a weavers guild, and they need help, whether you want to learn to weave or not, but they need help with different things. So that would be my guidance, is what are you interested in being more involved in? What are you interested in learning? And then
seek those areas out.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Great information. I do have another question. The questions are coming in. So we spoke about that the success of volunteering is built on quite a number of things, and we spoke about the teamwork that is very important. So the question is, how do you generate a sense of team? I would say in a group that is maybe brand new to working or volunteering together. How do you morph that teamwork and that energy so that you can have success?
Well, you know, it takes time. However, you know, I believe in volunteer orientations, and education are continual. So it's really good to get your volunteers together and it doesn't have to be for long periods of time, but have people introduce, like a simple, like, people don't want, there can be self-conscious. So a simple question, like, you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and one interesting fact. And, or, gee, tell us what was your favorite Christmas gift ever. Like, something like that. And people have some really interesting stories. And then you sort of get to know people, and you're chuckling, and and give them a little something to eat. Like, it might just be, you know, like a pop and a cookie, or and get them to, you know, sort of facilitate that growing and learning, and just having some social activity. And then also, when you're at the event, you know, you can have, I like, in most of our events, we have a little we call the volunteer center or volunteer lounge. It's just a place where they can come and relax. There's water, and there's a few little snacks, and so in between shifts, or that's where they leave their coat, and people mingle and talk, and get to know each other, and can compare their war stories, and make sure that your leadership team is in and out of there, thanking volunteers and encouraging them. And so, yeah, people for the most part like people, and they want to have a little bit of fun, and they want to get to know new people. And you just need to facilitate a bit of that.
Yeah, yeah. And people are actually putting things in the chat about things that they can do. And one of the things that is in the chat, simply ask a question, what is on your keychain? To get to know people, right? So
Exactly.
those are great ideas that can be used, and it's a timely process. I don't think it's something that can be rushed, because getting to know people is, it's very important. Once you get to know me, I feel that sense of belonging, that sense of appreciation, and that value piece that you mentioned before. So getting to know that aspect of the team is very important. And I like the fact that you mentioned that leadership needs to be involved as well. They see leadership. That's where the appreciation comes in. And I think that is able to build a strong bond, for team. We're almost at, it's 12:57 and the conversation is going, but I do want to be respectful of people's time. The last word, Your Honor. Um, what would you share? Just provide one piece of advice, to event, organizers that are aiming to really strengthen their volunteering programs. What would you say to them? Just what advice would you give to them?
Well, I think it comes down to be a volunteer, thank a volunteer, make memories, and have fun.
As simple as that. Have fun, be a volunteer yourself, and definitely just have fun. We are at the end, of our conversation, and thank you so much. Definitely great to have you on board. Your honor to spend the afternoon with us, and we have really definitely covered some valuable insights that you have shared today, from just recruiting, the screening of the volunteers, the training, the engagement, the recognition, that appreciation part that you have, definitely, shared. And, people are finding it helpful in terms of the ideas. And I think that they will be able to weave these into their volunteering program. So thank you so much for being a
Oh,
part of the conversation today. But before you go, um, we do hope that you have found this session quite valuable. And the next step, as Tourism Saskatchewan, we embark on this conversation, is to just encourage you to really explore, the resources that we have. And we do have quite a number of resources for volunteering events. And one of the things that we have the Saskatchewan Ambassador course. And this is really a great resource that I think all volunteers and event planners can look into, that will definitely give you an idea how is it that you are able to enhance visitor experience. And it provides really practical skills that you're able to engage the public about, you know, pro promoting that community pride and becoming knowledgeable about being a tourism ambassador. And the other course that I do think that we want you to look into is organizing special events. And this is an online course, so you don't have to leave the comforts of your home. It's very really self-paced, and it has 7 modules that really provides you with information about the essence of really planning and directing your special events. And so it covers a wide range of topics, inclusive of those events logistics. How do you market? How do you do your fundraising? How do you manage that human resource and that, financial aspect of it? And how do you deal with risk management? And then we also do have, some other resources. I know it's a mouthful, but I want to get it out there that we do also have, I would say, a training event checklist, and we do have a volunteering check, I would say, skills cheat sheet. And both of these, when it comes onto the training event checklist, it's to really help organizers, really to plan and to execute a successful volunteering team events. So on the training checklist, you'll go through pre-planning events, what to do during the event, and those post-event that follow up, the recommendations. Your Honor spoke about that feedback aspect, evaluating your outcomes, and then, reorganizing your or reevaluating your volunteering contributions. And then we also provide you with a volunteering skills cheat sheet. And again, It's a quick reference for volunteers that you can use, and all of this is on our webpage, the Business Hub. You can download these things, and it outlines those essential skills that you're able to provide in terms of recording those important conversation information. So it covers a wide range of essential skills, those communication skills that your Honour spoke about, problem solving, and that essential customer service skills that she spoke about. And there is also a section that you're able to, I would say, document key important contacts and resources. So we have all of that on the Business Hub, and I do want you to take your time and go through the Business Hub, and you will see all the information. Thank you. I've just seen one of my colleagues just placing the link in the chat. So thank you. See, it's teamwork and we're working together, even though she's in Regina, I'm here. Thank you so much for placing the information. And the ambassador course is free, and the special events course is $30. So please use the link that was placed in the chat. And thank you so much. If you do have any further questions, please do make contact with us at training@tourismsask.com, and we will attend to your questions. And at the end of this webinar session, there will be a survey that will pop up on your browser. It will only take 2 to 3 minutes to complete. We want to hear from you again. What is it that you want Tourism Saskatchewan to focus on? What are those areas or skills that you want us to enhance or to develop for you within your business in tourism? Thank you again, Your Honour. It was a pleasure having you on
My
this
pleasure
platform
too.
with us. And thank you everyone for joining us. And do remember that this conversation is recorded and it will be placed on the Business Hub. Have a great afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us. Happy to have you. Bye-bye, everyone.